Good morning, everybody. Thanks for coming to the
Morning.
Monday morning acceleration. Sounds like we've all had our coffee or our speed drinks or whatever the heck you drink in the morning. But, we wanted to go back to a couple things today. Quite often we're always going to come back to the basic stuff. And we talk a lot about tie downs. And I think a lot of sales folks are probably uncomfortable or unsure, or when do I use it? How do I use them? What's the right way to set it up? And, I had an interesting conversation. Chad and I were talking this morning, and we were talking about tie downs. He goes, I went to the rodeo this weekend. He goes, you ever been to a rodeo? And I said, yeah, I've been to a rodeo. And I assume most people here have either seen a rodeo on TV or been to one or heard about one or whatever. But one of the jobs of the cowboys in the rodeo is you ever see in a rodeo where they let the calf out first, and then the guy comes out and the horse behind the calf, and he has to lasso the calf, and he's got to tie the calf, jump off his horse, tie it up, and then jump back on its horse. Well, one of the rules is that the calf has to remain tied for at least 6 seconds. If it breaks out before 6 seconds, it's a crappy tie down. If it stays tied up for more than 6 seconds, then he's got a really good tie down. And I think that's real synonymous with sales. A crappy tie down is not going to stay tied down for you, and it's almost as good as not doing one. But a good one is going to cinch it up tight, and it's going to stay tight for 6 seconds so you can score properly. And in sales, metaphorically, it's scoring or selling and winning the sale. And I know we put out the merchant tune-up sheet, and I know a lot of you guys use it religiously, which I super appreciate. But one of the things that, if you notice on the merchant tune-up sheet, you notice how it kind of goes in line of questionings from left. You go left, down the page, to the middle of the page, and then to the right of the page. And the last thing on there is what kind of tie down did you use? And it's put there by design. Often you can't use a tie down until you've established some value, because it's too awkward, it's too weird. So that's why if you follow the merchant tune-up sheet and you ask them questions about their business, how they conduct it, what kind of equipment they're using, how they're running the transactions, services that they're looking for, then at the very end, that's where the tie down needs to come in, because you've established a working relationship with your customer. So does it make sense to build value before you tie down?
No.
It doesn't make sense? So one person said no, the rest said yes. So if I don't build value before I tie them down, what can I tie them down to if there's no value there? I can't really tie them down to anything because I haven't built value yet. And part of building value is not just coming in and showing a great number. Building value is getting engaged with their business, finding out about their business, what they're doing. And I had a deal recently, a buddy of mine, and it's funny, I've known the guy for probably 15 years. And along the way, I've asked him about his account, and he's like, we don't do any volume. I'm not really concerned about our merchant account. And then one day he comes up to me out of the blue, and he says, hey, you know what, it's finally come to a head that I need to really look at my credit card account. And he goes, would you be interested in giving me a quote? And I thought, okay. And immediately I thought, well, geez, I've known the guy 15 years. He knows what I'm all about, and he's asking me for a quote-unquote quote. And I said, no. And he goes, huh? And I said, look, and this is the only time you'd use a tie-down without building value, I guess. I said, look, if you're out looking for the cheapest deal in town, I'm not going to be your guy. If you're looking for the best value, then I'm going to be your guy. And I said, let me ask you. So if I put and granted, I know this guy really well, so I can get away with saying it like this. I said, if I put my time into this and I come in and I can look at what you're doing and save you and I'm in the ballpark, are we going to move forward on this, or am I going to just waste my time? And he kind of looked back and goes, look, it's not about the money. I just want to make sure I'm getting a good deal, and there's some things going on with my account that I think aren't right. And I go, oh, okay, so if I fix those and put a little money back in your pocket, we're moving forward then? And he goes, absolutely. And I kind of laid out to the guy, I said, look, if you want me to do this, and he approached me this time, so it was a little reversed. I could do that, but I didn't go in with a number. I went in with my merchant tune-up sheet. And I didn't take any shortcuts. I did the exact same thing. I went over to his company, sat down with him with the merchant tune-up sheet, and I asked him all the questions on there. And I found a couple issues that were going on with his account. And then at the very end, I said, look, I'm going to crunch some numbers for you. But when I do that, we're moving on this, right? And he said, absolutely. So if I would have gone in there and just rammed and jammed and not done the merchant tune-up sheet, I would have got a little resistance, even though I tied him down before, because the value wasn't there. I didn't uncover the things that he perceived as wrong with his account. And there were a couple things, but I didn't uncover those. And I tied him down too early. So the easiest way too, especially when you're new in this deal, and I think any deal, is the merchant tune-up sheet. When you're working with the merchant and you have that in front of you and you're asking the questions and you're writing it down on the sheet, when it comes to the tie down, it's very, very natural because all you're doing is completing your sheet. It's not like you've come up with something that you're making them feel uncomfortable by tying them down. It's like, no, this is just part of the process. See, it's right here on my sheet. It's on the, see right here, it's on the sheet. Yeah, I'm supposed to do this. And it's less from you and it's more of the process. Because you guys ever have an uncomfortable conversation in sales?
Yes.
All the time. Yeah, it's uncomfortable. Is it uncomfortable holding people accountable? Of course it's uncomfortable. It's supposed to be uncomfortable because, we're nice people, we're caring, we feel a little uncomfortable with it. But if it's just on the sheet, well, I'm just following the process to make sure that I get you the best deal possible. And the best deal could mean anything. It could mean pricing. It can mean, how your deal's structured, how kind of equipment you're using, whatever it is. I mean, you want the best deal possible, right, Mr. and Mrs. Merchant? You ever go to tie someone down and they're slippery, and they go, well, we'll need to think about it. You guys get that all the time, right? You go, well, look, if I do this for you, and can we move forward? And they go, well, we'll think about it. And you go, so what do you say then? Because everybody, you can't understand. The tie downs might come. It might take 3, 4, 5 questions to finally get the tie down and the commitment. It's not like you ask one time and you get it. Sometimes you do, depending on the relationship. But oftentimes it's 3 or 4 questions. So go, well, I need to think about it. What do you say then? A lot of you guys out there have written a lot of business. What do you say when you tie them down and they go, well, we'll need to think about it?
I would probably say something like, well, what do you think you'd be thinking about? Or what would you be thinking about? Or what do you think you need to be thinking about?
Yeah, exactly.
So at least then you get an idea of what they're, because if you don't know what they're thinking, you don't know where to go. You're not a psychic.
You're lost.
Yeah.
And that's exactly, and one of the things that I used to do all the time is I would go, look, I understand. The first thing is to go, oh, okay, I understand. Then it starts deflating their defenses. I go, I understand. I go, let me ask you, just so I'm on the same page as you, what part of getting a better deal, and whatever the deal is, maybe it's what part of getting this terminal that would do these things for you, or what part of putting more money back in your pocket, or what part of having this online system, whatever it was that was the topic of conversation, what part of getting that system to increase your business, just so I'm on the same page, would you be thinking about? Because really what you do when you tie down, that's where objections come in, don't they? They go hand in hand. Yeah, when I go to tie down, I get objections. My job, and that's why, like John said, well, what part about it would you be thinking about? Because our job is to uncover what really is going on behind the scenes there. Well, what's going on behind the scenes? Because everything that we've talked about, Mr. and Mrs. Merchant says, man, this is a great fit. So, everything says we should be moving forward. So what part about it would you be thinking about? And they go, well, and then they'll tell you. And you go, oh, okay, so basically what I'm hearing is that if I just handle this part of it for you and make sure that this is seamless, then we're okay moving forward then? Because it's okay, guys. It is okay 1,000% to hold off getting numbers until you have a commitment. That's okay. It's hard to do internally because I know I want the deal. It's hard to be disciplined enough to go, well, you know what, how about we do this? I have your statements. When you're ready to take advantage of whatever else what we talked about, why don't we do this? Why don't you just reach out to me, and then I'll put something together for you. And then it almost works like a little takeaway. Because that puppy dog close stuff it doesn't work real well in this industry because it's too competitive and it's too hard. So
when you say puppy dog close, so everybody knows what that means. How does that equate to? Because what you're saying, having been down this road a bunch, I would imagine some of the people are saying, well, how is that impossible? But so I'm going to tell them, hey, when you're ready, call me back.
Yeah.
Are you crazy, Chuck Fowler?
Well, you know me probably better than anybody on the call, and I probably am a little bit, but you need to because what happens 90% of the time. Go, why don't you do this? Why don't you just? It sounds like you're unsure about bettering your services right now. Why don't you just call me when you're ready? I have your statements. Now understand, I say this when I have their statements in my hand. I don't tie them down without statements. I don't do that yet. I put the harder tie down once I have their statements in my hand. Because 90% of what I do is reprogramming anyway. So what I do is once I have their statements in my hand, then I tie them down. And then if they give me any flack and they won't commit, I go, well, you know what? I have your statements or a copy or whatever. So why don't you call me when you're ready to better your services? Because why spend the time working on it if you're not ready to make a decision, right? In 90% of the time, do you know what they do? They go, whoa, hold on a second. Oh, can't you just put together some numbers for me? And I go, well, let me ask you, because you're hesitant about, and it's okay to be, you have to be open. You have to be open to be good at this. And I go, it's okay to say, well, let me ask you, I understand you want numbers, and I can get numbers. What would stop you from moving forward when I come in and get you a better program? What would prohibit us from moving forward together then? Yeah, I just want to know. And then
I have to get with my other merchant services.
Okay, so let me ask you. So your other merchant service provider who's been giving you something that you feel is not good enough. You ever hear the old expression, screw me once, shame on you, screw me twice, shame on me?
Right.
So, just so I understand where you're coming from, Mr. and Mrs. Merchant, so you want to give the company an opportunity that you've been working with that hasn't called you back, whatever the problem is, because you've uncovered a problem at this point. Otherwise, they wouldn't be entertaining the idea of moving forward with you. They wouldn't be there even having the conversation if you haven't uncovered something that says, yes, I need to look at this to move forward. Maybe it's a pricing issue. Maybe it's an equipment issue. They don't have their EMV terminal yet. I don't know. Whatever it could be. So you're saying that a company that's not proactive to make sure that you're ready for October 1st, you want to go back to them? Is that what I'm hearing you say? Because when you hear the words, doesn't that sound almost ludicrous? Sometimes things have to be aired for people to think about them. Well, you know what? You're right. They've been overcharging me to the tune of $120 a month for the last 5 years. So you want to go back to them, or so you're clearly on something different than what you signed up for 3 years ago. So you want to continue doing business with someone that's going to change the deal on you down the road without you knowing? Just so I understand where you're coming from, is that what I'm hearing? Do you know how uncomfortable that is to say that to people? It's uncomfortable. But you know what justice are you doing your client or your customer if you don't uncover these things for them? Because the realities of it is that do you know what a merchant's job is? Is to run their business. That's their job. And if you've ever run a business, and you do now because you're in this, you're self-employed basically. Is it hard to do administration, marketing, sales, customer service? It's hard to do all those things, isn't it? There's enough to keep track of just doing that. So don't you want to make sure that you're in business bed with people, that you don't have to worry about the account that I'm going to get you. It's going to be what I tell you. And isn't it nice to know that when you need me, you don't have to call 800,000 times to try to find me somewhere because I might be selling vacuum cleaners next week because I didn't do a good job at my deal? I mean, what's important to you in a work relationship? Are those things important to you guys?
Yep.
The places
Yeah.
that you do business? Yeah. But if you don't relate that and articulate to them, because we all get tunnel vision. You get tunnel vision. You're so fixed on one little aspect of it that you almost don't pay attention to the things that are going on around you. So what our job is to relate that to the merchant and go, I understand that your tunnel vision is that you want to call your guy back. But let me ask you, let's strip all that away a second. And this customer or this person you've been doing business with has really been overcharging you to the tune of $120 a month for the last 4 years. I mean, let me ask you, what could you have done with that $120 a month over the last 4 years? That's a lot of money. I mean, you'd agree with that, wouldn't you, Mr. and Mrs. Merchant?
Sure.
Sure you would. So let me ask you, if I can come in and I can put that $120 a month back into your pocket, make it seamless, get the money in the same time frame that you get it today, use the same equipment, or we get you the new upgraded terminal that you want, or Clover because it does these things. I mean, there really isn't a reason why we shouldn't move forward, right?
Well, I have to check and see the cancellation fee.
What's that?
Yeah, I have to check to see if I got a cancellation fee.
Well, those are going to come up. Those happen. But our job is to kind of, by this point, I have a pretty good idea where they're going to be sitting. If they've been with the same provider for 4 years, look, industry standard agreements are 36 months. So you've been there how long? See, and this is where you got to ask them. You can't tell them, because if you tell them, they think, I'm not going to listen to you. You can't go, oh, well, you've been with them 4 years. You don't have a cancellation fee. You go, industry standard agreements are 36 months. I mean, that's what ours is too. And how long you been with them? And they go 4 years. 30 months? Oh, okay. So we have 6 months left. All right, then let's put the pencil to this. Let's see if it makes sense. I mean, at $120 a month, I don't know what their cancellation fee is. I have a pretty good idea, depending on the company they're with, what that's going to be. Hey, that's fine. Why don't we do this? Why don't we? And there's so many ways to work around cancellation fees, and those obviously are specific depending on the situation of the merchant. Maybe I go, hey, no problem. You're getting a new terminal either way. If I were the salesperson on it, if I'm getting them a new terminal, I'm going to be presenting leasing. I always present leasing options first. I'm just wired that way because that's standard in our industry to offer leasing, and there's a lot of money to be made. For me, I go, look, let me do some digging on that for you. I'm going to find out what the cancellation fee is. I would pay it out of my commissions on my lease. I don't care. I'm getting a heck of a conversion bonus. That's why it's there. Even if I'm not leasing, maybe I split it with them. Maybe I pay the whole thing. Maybe I saved them enough money, they pay the whole thing. I mean, if I'm saving you $120 a month and you have a $250 cancellation fee, it's pretty simple math, right?
Oh.
Right.
Well,
I don't know.
Of course,
What's that?
unless, of course, it's a merchant doing the math.
Well, yeah, but that's why you. That's why.
Thankfully, you're there to do the right math. And
Yeah, exactly. So the beauty of this deal is, yeah, there's a lot of moving parts to it, but because there's a lot of moving parts to it, I think only a certain segment of the world's population can handle things that have a lot of moving parts, and that's why when you figure this thing out, you're like in an elitist group. And that's where you can become so good at this because you're not running on merchant math. You're running on the right math. So, I mean, you're going to have all kinds of little things that come up. And if somebody goes, well, I have to check on my cancellation fee. And I go, okay, well, let me ask you this. If we can deal with the cancellation fee, if there is one, if we can deal with that appropriately and it makes dollars and cents, we can still move forward, right?
That's a good one.
Well,
Yeah,
right. I mean,
I'm trying.
right. I mean, we can work through anything. You know, we can work through anything, Mr. and Mrs. Merchant. But if we can work through it and it makes dollars and cents, we can still move on this, right? Because I mean, you plan on being in business longer than 6 months, don't you? Well, yeah, I've been in business 15 years. I plan on blah blah. Exactly. So you have to forecast things out. And you got to go look. I mean, this isn't something that's just going to affect you for this 30 days. I mean, more cash flow is more cash flow. Or, you know, being EMV ready, you'll have to be because you don't want the liability. Okay, I can get you this EMV terminal, and I'll pay the cancellation fee out of my commissions, for an example. I mean, what's it cost to bring on the liability starting October 1st? Because bottom line is the liability can sink most merchants out there. Most merchants can't recover.
So basically what you're saying is you have to get them out of their tunnel vision.
You got to get them out of their tunnel vision, man. But you got to do it by asking them. And the thing is, you can't have these kind of conversations with the merchant until you've built value, until they understand, like you've gone through the merchant tune-up sheet. Because when you go through the merchant tune-up sheet with the merchant, what they quickly start to understand is that you know all about their business when it comes to this. You know the equipment, you know how they're taking the cards, the services that you're using. And what happens is it's an investment on their part too. They've spent time with you. And when they spend time with you, they're more apt to do business with you. It's any relationship. You know, what do they say, if you haven't heard from someone in 3 months, the relationship's basically over? You know, you think about people that are in your circle. Think about people in your circle. We all have a friend that you probably talk to 2 or 3 times a week, right? Or maybe once a week, depending on how busy you are. That's the person you have a relationship with. Everybody else is an acquaintance. So the same applies with the merchant. It's the same mindset. If I'm in there with you and I'm asking these questions and we're interacting and we're spending time together, we're establishing a relationship. And maybe it's a real clinical work relationship. Maybe there's things in common that we're joking and shooting the shit and having a good time, and we're building more of a friendship relationship. It depends on who my client is. It depends on how open they are. But if they invest time with you, they're more apt to move forward and do business. If it's a short, quip little thing, there's no value in it to them because they haven't invested any of their time.
Especially if it's quality time. And you're having good conversation about something that interests them.
Right.
Like their business. That's why.
Like their business.
That's exactly why we put together the tune-up sheet and the order. Like when Chuck was talking about the order that it's in, we start at the top left, we go to the bottom, go back up to the next column heading called processing, and when you get down to the end of that, if we can get you a better program, can we do business? There's the big tie down, and you spent a good amount of time having conversation. Asking them the right quality questions, the right sorts of questions. They're responding. You're really getting into it, and then hey, and you've built trust too. You know, one of the things that time and doing the right sorts of thing with the time builds trust, and that's something that's important, especially if you want to do this on one call close kind of thing. You know, you don't want to have to invest 18 weeks of time. You want to invest the shortest amount of time possible, but the highest quality of time so that we can move forward and you can get them exactly what they need, and then you can get the next person exactly what they need. And you can do a lot of these and provide a lot of value, generate a high income, and keep going. And this is, how you do it. And it's interesting. It does get, it can be sticky and uncomfortable, these tie downs. If you kind of take it out of context, it's always a little uncomfortable, but it's less uncomfortable when you do it a lot, and it just becomes part of the process. But the whole thing becomes easier in the context of building value and following this, and by doing so with the sheet, like Chuck said, it's just one of the things on the sheet, and that we put it together so it prompts you to ask the questions, to have the conversation all along the way. What kind of volume do you do? Are you seasonal? Do you know if you're PCI compliant? All these things that none of your competition does this. and it's almost like it doesn't matter what they sell, or what you've ever sold in the past. But I think Chuck called it high quality. This is a high quality way about consultative sort of selling. It's not your everyday garden variety schlep rock way of going out and trying to sell like everybody else gets taught. It's a high quality, high value sort of way to sell, and establishing trust, all the things that are needed to build a relationship that lasts a long time. And they also send you referrals because they appreciate how you handled them, and they appreciate that because you're the only one who's out there doing it.
Right. It's funny.
So the tie down just becomes so much easier.
Right, and it's more natural that way, too. It's in the account that I'd mentioned earlier, the buddy of mine that I wrote. And when I went over to his business the first time and to gather the information I needed, one of the things that we did when we got there, and they've got a pretty big facility, and they've got some light manufacturing there, and they've got, they store their product there, and I kind of got the whole gist of the deal. But before we sat down to really talk numbers and things of that nature, because I had his statements already, before we did that, I go, man, this is a huge facility, and I said, what's back here? He goes, oh, well, let's go. So I went for a tour of the whole facility, and it was funny because I'd ask questions about how they did things, and so do you guys take a deposit when people place an order? How does that work? Oh, it works like this, and what I found is just by asking other general business questions, I found out more about how they use the credit card, their merchant account, in relation to how they do business. And then I would do little mini tie downs as we were walking through the whole facility about, oh, okay, so you probably want something on your account that you can do these things with. Yeah, that's exactly what we were thinking. Got it. So probably the first 20 minutes, half hour was just tooling around the facility, asking questions, learning about how they do business. I learned their story. And then it was much easier when I sat down to tie it down. Because we had a business type relationship going too. So always ask about their business, and when they tell you, and ask how credit cards relate to it. So how do you guys do that? Do you guys, do you take a deposit up front and then you ship, or you just charge when you ship? How does that work? And whatever the business may be. I mean, it's different with everybody. Go out and look at their trucks. Man, those are all new trucks. Man, those are cool. I've never seen the inside of one. Whatever it is, learn everything about because those are things that merchants are worried about. That's their big worries. Because really, I mean, when you think about it in the scheme of things, a merchant going, well, yeah, I know I can save $80, $100 a month by going with these guys, but I'm trying to run. I've got 5 employees that are running around in my trucks. One guy's banging it up. The other guy's got an insurance claim going. One guy didn't show up. Those are things they worry about day in and day out. So I want to make this process really smooth and simple for them, and I want to know what their worries are so I can relate it to, hey, you don't have to worry about this because I know you're worried about your trucks, or you're worried about your employees showing up, or you're worried about these things. You don't have to worry about this. I got it for you. That's how you establish that value. Does that make sense?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Learn everything you can about their deal. Everything you can. And then the tie downs, boy, I bet that putting that $80 a month back in your pocket, since you just told me insurance premiums went up $75, that would really help you, wouldn't it? So I can get this together for you, and we can start doing that right away then? Yeah, because you know my business. You know what I need. So it's a formula, guys, and it's like be patient. You got to be patient but aggressive. And but you've got to tie down, and you got to cinch it down where that tie down holds together for you. And if you can relate it to something that's probably something they worry about more, in the sense of maybe another bill they have, well, here, I'm cleaning that up for you because I'm saving you enough here to cover that. You don't have to worry about where that money's coming from anymore. Whatever you can do to relate that is going to take you even farther. And then just cinch it down and tie it down. So, any questions on that? Pretty simple. I know the
Yep.
words are simple.
Yeah,
The words are simple, but the actions, it's real simple. I mean, ideally, you go, well, it looks easy to hit a golf ball. Well, it's not, or it looks easy to do this and it's not. So,
but tie downs are simpler if you build the right relationship or the right value, like you talked about, relationship value, whatever you want to call it. Like
right.
you just said, where it's tie downs, and they feel more comfortable to you saying them when you have something you just invested the right quality time, having the right experience with the merchant, showing them that you actually care about their business and are interested. You're seriously interested. You took the time to look at it. How does this work? And that's like a real key is to find real interest, not fake interest, because everybody can tell that you're fibbing,
Right.
And as you can when somebody's not really interested. Oh, real. Oh, that's so. I was getting my hair cut the other day, and I was listening to a woman cutting hair a couple chairs away, and you could tell she really didn't care. You see, oh wow, that's so interesting, and you could tell she really didn't care. And I thought,
right.
oh goodness, I wonder if the woman sitting in the chair really knows that the woman who's cutting her hair really doesn't care, because you can tell by the tone. But I think you can tell, and if you take a genuine interest and you have all this information, and you do care about the merchant, then you go, man, let me help you. And like Chuck said, equate it to something, and then it just all makes sense. And still they might say, come up with some objection to the tie down, and then so you've got to, have a little more conversation and ask them again in a different sort of way. But that's how it works.
Exactly how it works.
Just part of the process.
Yeah, it's just part of the process. Make it a process and cookie cut it. Do it the same every time. You know that you got to go in and ask these questions. You're going to get involved with them to a degree about their business, and then you're going to narrow it down to a solution, and then you're going to tie them down. Just every time. It's just one thing that we talk about here, and I know we probably talked about it on the call before, but I call it the who, what, when, where's, and whys of sales. Who am I dealing with? Figure out what kind of client I have in front of me. Sure, I know their name, but what are they? Are they aggressive? Are they driven? Are they passive or amiable? Whatever. What do they want? Let me uncover what they want. When do they want it by? Where are they now? Where are they now into relation to what they want? And then I want to find out, why do you want it? Why do you want that? And once I understand those things, all I got to do is come up with the how and then present the how to them. But figure out those whys and whats and whens and wheres and who's first, and then it's much easier to get them to subscribe to the how. So just cookie cut it. Same thing every time. So excellent. Any other questions before we part ways today, guys? All right, remember that. Go in today. Learn all about it. Tie down as you go. Think about that 6-second tie down. You want them tied down to where they're tied down enough to pull through and make the sale happen. So tomorrow at noon, we've got a case study that we're going over, especially for the newer guys. Definitely get to those case study calls. We dissect a sale that we've done recently and kind of go through it so you can kind of learn how things piece together. Very, very informative. And I know John's hosting that call tomorrow. So until next week, everybody have a great week. We're a little over halfway through the month, and let's make some money for you this month, okay?
Exactly. We'll
all
see.
Right,
Hopefully all of you tomorrow. We'll dissect that deal. But and we'll be sure to come tomorrow.
Sounds great. Thanks, everybody.
All right.
All right. Have a good day.